Bright QT. Every student matters.
Students, welcome to another lecture. In this class, we are going to continue with the explanation of Chapter 1, Class 12 Literature Reader, Naval and War. So we had started with the chapter A Piece of Bread, in which we read about the Duke de Hardimont, who when heard about the losing of the battle by the French army on the French soil, he felt annoyed and wanted himself to be a part of the troop. So he came to Paris and there he met Jean Victor. And how did they meet each other? When the Duke had thrown a piece of bread on account of it being hard. The other soldier whose name is Jean Victor, he actually jumped on that bed and he started eating it hungrily. And it was then when Jean Victor told the Duke about how he has been living his life for all these years in extreme hunger. Okay, so let us continue now. So Jean Victor said he, seizing in his turn by a delicate tact, to speak familiarity to the foundling. If we survive this dreadful war, we will meet again, and I hope that I may be useful to you. But in the meantime, as there is no bakery but the commissionary, and as my ration of bread is twice too large for my delicate appetite, it is understood, is it not? We will share it like good comrades. So the Duke said that Jean Victor, and he, took it he talked to him in a very delicate manner. He knew that he was talking to a foundling. He knew he was talking to an orphan. And so he chose his words very appropriately. He said to Jean Victor that if we are going to survive this dreadful, this dangerous war, then we will surely meet again. And I hope that I can be of some help to you. But in the meantime, there is no bakery around us, just the commissionary that gives ration to the soldiers. So he said, and that my ration of bread is twice as much as I eat. So I want to share that with you like good friends, like good comrades. It was strong and hearty, the hand clasp which followed. Then, as night fell, they returned to the tavern and were soon sleeping soundly. So after that, they shook hands. Hand clasp, they held each other's hands, and the Duke remembers that hand clasp, the way they held each other's hand, that was very strong and very hearty. It came straight from the heart. And after that, they came back to the tavern and were soon sleeping soundly. They had a very comfortable sleep. Toward midnight, Jean Victor awoke, being hungry probably. A ray of moonlight made its way into the room, lighting up the handsome blonde head of the young Duke, who was sleeping like an endymion. So towards midnight, Jean Victor woke up. Maybe he was hungry, that is why he could not sleep. And at that time, there was a moonlight that was entering the room, and that ray of moon fell on the face of the Duke. And the Duke's face shone like an endymion. Endymion is a character, in a Greek mythology. So he looked very handsome and he looked very young. Still touched by the kindness of his comrade, Jean Victor was gazing at him with admiration. When the sergeant of the platoon opened the door and called the 5 men who were to relieve the sentinels of the outposts. The Duke was of the number, but he did not waken when his name was called. And Jean Victor was still touched. He felt very emotional and he felt very nice by the the kindness that the Duke had shown towards him. And so he was gazing at him. He was looking at him with admiration, with praises, with appreciation. When the sergeant of that platoon, of that troop, he opened the door and called out the names of the 5 soldiers who were to relieve, who were to take place of those soldiers who were there at the outposts. Now, the Duke was also one of those 5 members, but when his name was called, he did not wake up. Hardiman, stand up, repeated the non commissioned officer. So the officer repeated again, he told Hardiman to stand up. If you are willing, Sergeant, said Jean Victor, rising, I will take his duty. He's sleeping so soundly and he's my comrade. So Jean Victor said to the sergeant that if you don't have a problem, I can take up the duty of Hardiman because he is sleeping and I don't want to wake him up. Besides, he's my friend. So the sergeant said, as you please. If you want to do this, you can do this. The 5 men left and the snoring recommenced. But half an hour later, the noise of near and rapid firing burst upon the night. In an instant, every man was on his feet, and each with his hand on the chamber of his gun, stepped cautiously out, looking earnestly along the road lying white in the moonlight. So those 5 men they left, and the snoring. We snore when we are sleeping soundly. So the Duke was snoring, and that recommenced. He started snoring again. He was again, deeply in sleep. But half an hour later, there was a very loud noise of gunshots, of rapid firing that could be heard from everywhere. And this sound made each one of the soldiers get up on their feet and take their guns and step out of their chambers. They stepped out very cautiously, very carefully. They came out looking earnestly with a lot of caution and care. They started looking along the road, which was only covered with moonlight. What time is it? Asked the Duke. I was to go on duty tonight. So at that time, the Duke suddenly remembered that he had his duty, so he asked the time from one of the soldiers. The soldier replied that Jean Victor went in your place. Since you were sleeping, so your friend Jean Victor, he went in your place. At that moment, a soldier was seen running towards them along the road. What is it? They cried as he stopped out of breath. The Prussians have attacked us. Let us fall back to the redoubt. Are your comrades? They are coming, all but poor Jean Victor. So, at that moment, there was a soldier who came towards them running. The others asked him, what happened? What is the problem? So as soon as that soldier got his breath back, he told them that the Prussians have attacked. Prussians, the German army has attacked them. We need to go back to our redoubt. We need to go back to our fort so that we can hide them. We can hide there. And your comrades, so the Duke asked him that what about those who were there with you? You were five people on the duty. So he said that everybody is coming back except for Jean Victor. So that clearly means that out of those 5, Jean Victor had died. It was only Jean Victor who was there. Where is he? Cried the Duke. Shot through the head with a bullet, died without a word. And the soldier told the Duke that he was shot through the head with a bullet and he did not even utter a word and he died. So that was a very terrible and a sad ending that Jean Victor could have imagined for his life. Now comes the second part of the story where years later, once the Duke was back from the war and the situation was all okay, he was walking home with one of his friends. Let us see what happened then. One night last winter, Duke de Hardiman left his club about 2 o'clock in the morning with his neighbor, Count de Solness, The Duke had lost some 100 louis and had a slight headache. So one night last winter, Duke de Hardimont, he was coming out of a nightclub at 2 o'clock in the morning with his neighbor, whose name was Count de Solness. Now, okay, no, there's no mention. Okay, so he came out and he had lost some money. Obviously, if you are talking about a club, you will lose money. So he had lost some money and he had a little headache also. If you are willing, Andre, he said to his companion, we will go home on foot. I need air. So Duke said to his friend that if you don't have a problem, I would like to walk back home because I need some fresh air. Just as you please, I am willing, although the walking may be bad. So his friend said that if you want, I don't have a problem in walking, but yes, it may be bad. It can be bad for us because it is a long distance that we have to walk back home. They dismissed their hoops, hoops means their drivers, turned up the collars of their overcoats and set off towards the Madeleine. Suddenly, an object rolled before the Duke, which he had struck with the toe of his boot. It was a large piece of bread spattered with mud. So they asked their drivers to leave. They put up their collars because it was very cold, and then they started walking towards home. Suddenly, when they were walking, there was an object that rolled towards the Duke. And when he picked it up, he saw that it was a piece of bread which was spattered with mud, which had been rolled and covered with mud all around. Then, to his amazement, Monsieur de Saulness saw the Duke de Hardimont pick up the piece of bread, wipe it carefully with his handkerchief embroidered with his armorial bearings, and place it on a bench in full view under the gaslight. So his friend was highly amazed and surprised when he saw the Duke pick up that piece of bread, wipe the mud on the bread with his handkerchief, which was very expensive and was very unique, and put it on the bench under the light. The light of the bench, the street light, he put that bread on the bench. What did you do that for? Asked the Count, laughing heartily. Are you crazy? So the Count, that is the Duke's friend, he started laughing at him and he said, are you crazy? What did you just do? It is in memory of a poor fellow who died for me, replied the Duke in a voice which trembled slightly. Do not laugh, my friend, it offends me. So the Duke said to the Count that I did that in the memory of a poor fellow, of a poor man who died for me. And when he spoke that, he actually trembled. One could see the the emotional outburst in his voice, and he said, please don't laugh at me because it hurts me. Now, why do you think he said he died for me? Because that night, if Jean Victor would not have taken the Duke's position at among those 5 people, then that bullet would have shot the Duke. Just because Jean Victor volunteered to take his place, it was him who died. So with this, my dear students, we come to the end of explanation of this chapter. So we have seen a very beautiful and emotional tale of 2 people, Duke de Hardimont and Jean Victor. Duke de Hardimont, being a very rich man, was very upset when he got to know that his country, France, was losing the war on the French soil, and he decided to get himself enlisted in the army. He took the train to Paris, and very soon he found himself on the doors of a tavern, of an inn which was painted with blood and was in a very bad state. He felt hungry, so he took out a piece of bread from his knapsack. But that piece of bread was very hard and bitter. So he could not eat much of it, and out of anger, he just threw it and started thinking about all the wonderful breakfasts he would have at the cafe. Just then he saw a soldier who came out of the tavern. He bent down, took that piece of bread from the mud, cleaned it with his clothes, and started eating it hungrily. The Duke was extremely sorry for what he had done, and he apologized to the man by saying that if I would have known that you would want that bread, I would not have thrown it away. The man to this replied that that is perfectly fine. This is not the first time when I am eating something like this, so I do not mind at all. They then went on a walk when the man introduced himself as Jean Victor and told our Duke that he was an orphan and that the only good memories he had of his life were from the asylum when he was too young and was taken care of by a very kind sister who would make him sleep at night with her, very warm hand over his forehead. Ever since he was 12, he has been hungry, and hunger has been a constant feeling he'd been through. At the age of 18, he got himself to be a part of the army. He also told the Duke that he never lies. He did not lie when he said that he was hungry because that is the only feeling that he has been through. The Duke obviously felt very bad and he said to Jean Victor that we are going to remain friends, that after the war is over, I would want to help you. But right now, since we are friends, I would like to share with you my ration of bread. Now, at night, when the Duke was sleeping very peacefully, there came the call for 5 men who had their duty on the outpost. Jean Victor did not feel like waking up the Duke and rather took his place. After half an hour, there were the sounds of heavy firing that woke everybody up, including the Duke. When he went out, he got the message that Jean Victor had died. Had it been the Duke who would have gone on his duty, it would have him who would have died. But Jean Victor took death on his face for the Duke. Years later, when the Duke once was walking back home with a count with one of his friends, he was seen doing something of a similar sort with a piece of bread that rolled down on his feet. He picked that piece of bread, he wiped that off with his handkerchief, and kept it under the street light on the bench, telling the Count, who was laughing at him heartily, that he did it for a friend who died for him. So, this, my dear friends, is indeed a wonderful tale of friendship, of what a friend can do for another friend.